The spaceport smelled like burnt metal and rain. David wiped grease from his hands and stared at the cargo manifest on his datapad. Christmas Eve meant nothing to most aliens, but the human workers had strung up colored lights anyway. They blinked red and green across the landing bay, reflecting off puddles of water from the evening storm. His shift should have ended an hour ago. The freighter from Andromeda Sector needed repairs before it could launch, and David was the only mechanic still certified on those old engines. He did not mind the overtime. Going home to an empty apartment on Christmas Eve felt worse than staying here with the smell of engine coolant and the hum of machinery. His communicator buzzed against his hip. David almost ignored it. Almost. Then he saw the name on the screen. Beth. His ex-wife Rachel's sister. She never called unless something was wrong. David, Lily's gone. Beth's voice cracked through the speaker. She was at Mom's house for dinner and she just disappeared. We checked everywhere. Her comm device shows she's heading toward the old warehouse district. David's stomach dropped. The warehouse district sat on the edge of the colony, where buildings stood empty and broken. No place for an 8-year-old girl to be wandering alone at night. I'm going, David said. He was already running toward his ground car. David, wait. There's something else. Beth paused. Sarah got the same alert. She's probably looking for Lily, too. David stopped moving. For 5 years, he had not seen Sarah face to face. 5 years since their screaming match in the mediation office. 5 years since she had walked out of their apartment with one bag and never looked back. I don't care, David lied. I just need to find Lily. He drove too fast through the colony streets. The Christmas decorations looked blurry through the rain on his windshield. Other families gathered in warm houses with food and gifts. David had bought presents for Lily, wrapped them carefully, and put them under the small tree in his living room. She was supposed to come tomorrow morning. Now he did not know if she was safe. The warehouse district looked even worse in the dark. Most of the streetlights had burned out years ago. David parked his car and grabbed a flashlight from the emergency kit. The rain had turned to snow. Fat flakes fell from the black sky and melted on the cracked pavement. Lily, David called. His voice echoed off empty buildings. Baby, where are you? Nothing answered except the wind. David had met Sarah 10 years ago at a diplomatic reception. He had been a cargo pilot, young and stupid and full of confidence. She had been a newly arrived ambassador from the Draken homeworld, trying to understand human customs. She laughed at his jokes even though she clearly did not understand half of them. Her scales had gleamed like polished copper under the party lights. They should not have worked. Humans and Draken came from different worlds, different cultures, different biology. But somehow they fit together. Sarah learned to eat with forks. David learned basic Draken customs. They got married under both human and Draken law. When Sarah got pregnant, they had been terrified and excited in equal measure. Lily came out perfect. Half human, half Draken. She had her mother's scales on her arms and back, her father's eyes and smile. She could shift between forms, though it exhausted her. David had loved his daughter from the first moment he held her tiny body in his arms. But raising a hybrid child in a colony that barely accepted interspecies marriage proved harder than either parent expected. Sarah faced constant judgment from other Draken. David's own mother refused to acknowledge Lily for the first 2 years. The pressure built and built until something had to break. That something had been their marriage. David shook his head, trying to focus on the present. He moved between buildings, checking doorways and broken windows. The snow fell harder now, coating everything in white. Lily, please answer me. Then he saw movement at the end of the street. A large shape too big to be human, wings folded against a scaled back. Sarah stood under a broken streetlight, looking in the opposite direction. She wore her half-form, the shape she used in public, mostly humanoid but with obvious Draken features. Her scales had lost some of their shine. She held her wings closer to her body than she used to. David's feet stopped moving. 5 years. 5 years of carefully coordinated custody exchanges through Beth. 5 years of never being in the same room. 5 years of anger and hurt and words he could never take back. Sarah turned. Her eyes, golden with vertical pupils, locked onto his face. Neither of them spoke. The snow continued to fall, gathering on their shoulders and hair. David wanted to say something. Anything. But his throat felt tight. This was the woman he had loved more than anything. This was the woman who had walked away from him and their daughter. This was the mother of his child who was lost somewhere in this frozen wasteland of abandoned buildings. Sarah spoke first. Her voice came out rough, like she had not used it much lately. We need to find her, together. David wanted to refuse. He wanted to tell Sarah to go back to wherever she had been hiding for 5 years. He wanted to be angry, but Lily mattered more than his pride. Fine, David said. You take the north side. I'll search south. No. Sarah moved closer. Together. I can see heat signatures. You know these buildings. We'll cover more ground if we work as a team. David's jaw clenched. Being near Sarah hurt. Looking at her hurt. Remembering everything they had lost hurt. But she was right. Okay, he said quietly. Let's find our daughter. They moved into the darkness side by side, two people who used to be everything to each other, now barely able to speak. Somewhere in the cold and snow, their daughter was alone and scared. David pushed everything else from his mind. Finding Lily was all that mattered. The only problem was being this close to Sarah again made David remember exactly why losing her had nearly destroyed him. David's flashlight beam cut through the falling snow as they searched the first warehouse. Empty crates sat stacked against walls covered in old graffiti. Sarah moved silently beside him, her eyes glowing faintly as she scanned for heat signatures. The building held nothing but cold air and forgotten junk. Next one, David said, not looking at her. They tried 3 more buildings with no sign of Lily. David's hands shook from cold and fear. His daughter had been out here for over an hour now. The temperature kept dropping. This is taking too long, Sarah said. Her breath came out as steam. Even Draken felt the cold eventually. We should split up. No. David surprised himself with how quickly he answered. You were right before. We're better together. Something flickered across Sarah's face. Surprise maybe, or pain. She nodded and they kept moving. The 5th building had a partially collapsed roof. Snow drifted through the holes above, creating small piles on the concrete floor. David remembered this place from years ago. He and Sarah had explored the warehouse district when they first moved to the colony together. They had talked about fixing up one of these buildings, turning it into something useful, young and stupid and so sure they could change the world. Do you remember this place? Sarah asked quietly, so she remembered too. Yeah. We were going to open a garage. Half human mechanics, half Draken engineers. Show everyone that cooperation could work. Sarah's voice carried a bitter edge. That didn't last long. David felt his anger flare. You're the one who left. I left because you made it clear you didn't want me here. Sarah's voice rose. Her wings spread slightly, an unconscious sign of agitation. That's not true and you know it, David shouted back. His words echoed through the empty building. I begged you to stay. I begged you to work things out. You were the one who decided running away was easier than fighting. Sarah's eyes blazed. Fighting? You call that fighting? You sat there silent while your mother told me I was ruining your life. You said nothing when your friends talked about our daughter like she was some kind of experiment. I was alone, David. Alone in a colony that hated me, trying to raise a child who would never be accepted by either species. You weren't alone. I was right there. No, you weren't. Sarah's voice cracked. You were there physically, but you stopped seeing me. Every time someone made a comment, every time someone stared at Lily, you would just look away. You were ashamed of us. David felt like she had punched him in the chest. I was never ashamed of you, never. I was ashamed of myself. Ashamed that I couldn't protect you both from all the hatred. Ashamed that loving you wasn't enough to make the world be kind. They stood in the ruined warehouse, breathing hard, staring at each other. Years of pain and anger hung in the cold air between them. David wanted to say more. He wanted to explain everything he had felt. Everything he had been too afraid to say back then. But this was not the time. We need to keep looking, David said, his voice rough. Sarah nodded, her wings folded back against her body. They left the warehouse in tense silence. The 6th building sat at the edge of the district. It had been an observation tower once, back when the colony was first established. Now the lower floors stood empty and the stairs looked dangerous. David played his flashlight over the entrance. Fresh footprints marked the snow. Small footprints. She's here, Sarah breathed. Her eyes widened. I can sense her heat signature. Top floor, they rushed inside. The stairs groaned under their weight, but held. David took them 2 at a time, his heart pounding. Sarah flew up the center shaft, her wings barely fitting in the narrow space. They reached the top floor together. Lily sat in the corner, her arms wrapped around 3 smaller children. All of them hybrid kids with mixed human and alien features. They looked frozen and terrified. When Lily saw her parents, her face crumpled. "Mom? Dad?" Her voice came out as a whisper. David crossed the floor in 3 steps and pulled all 4 children into his arms. Sarah wrapped her wings around the whole group, creating a warm shelter with her body. For a moment, neither parent spoke. They just held the children and tried not to think about what could have happened. "Are you okay?" David finally managed. "Are you hurt?" Lily shook her head. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to help them." "Help who, baby?" Sarah asked gently. One of the other children, a small boy with feathers mixed into his hair, spoke up. "We're from the hybrid group at school. We were talking about how none of us fit in anywhere." Lily said she knew a place where we could all be ourselves without people staring. "I didn't mean to scare you," Lily sobbed. "I just heard you on the phone, Dad. You said Christmas would be easier without custody arrangements. I thought you didn't want me around. And these kids had nowhere to go either. Their parents all split up too. I thought maybe if we all disappeared, everyone would be happier." David felt his heart shatter. "Oh, Lily, no, baby, no. I was just tired of fighting with lawyers. I never meant I didn't want you. You're everything to me." "Then why aren't you and Mom together?" Lily asked. Her hybrid eyes, half human and half draken, looked between both parents. "If you love me, why can't you love each other?" Neither parent had an answer. David looked at Sarah over their daughter's head. Sarah stared back, her expression broken and raw. They had hurt their child. Their fear and pride had made Lily feel unwanted. The truth of that cut deeper than any argument. "We need to get them all warm," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "There's a maintenance station 2 buildings over. It should have power," David nodded. Together they gathered the 4 children and made their way carefully down the dangerous stairs. Outside, the snow had become a full storm. But wrapped in Sarah's wings, with David leading the way, the children stayed protected. They moved through the white darkness as a group, as something that almost looked like a family. David got the maintenance station door open after 3 tries. His fingers were numb from cold, but he managed to activate the emergency power. Lights flickered on, revealing a single large room with basic supplies and an old heating unit. Sarah immediately moved to the center of the room and shifted into her full dragon form. She was massive in that shape, nearly filling half the space. Golden scales covered her body and her wings spread wide. The children stared in awe. Even David, who had seen her transform hundreds of times, felt his breath catch. She was beautiful. She had always been beautiful. Sarah curled her body into a circle and gestured with her head for the children to come close. "Body heat," she explained, her voice deeper in this form. "Draken are naturally warm. You'll feel better soon." The 4 children crawled against her scaled side without hesitation. Kids accepted magic more easily than adults. Within minutes, they stopped shivering. David found emergency blankets in a supply cabinet and wrapped them around each child. "I'm calling emergency services," David said, pulling out his communicator. "These kids' families must be terrified." He made the calls while Sarah kept the children warm. 3 families answered immediately, crying with relief that their kids were safe. They would send someone to pick them up as soon as the storm cleared enough for vehicles to get through. That might take an hour or more. David sat down on an old crate, exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept him moving was fading. His daughter was safe. That was all that mattered. Except Lily had asked a question he could not stop thinking about. "Why can't you love each other?" Sarah shifted back to her half form as the children began to warm up. She stayed close to them, letting her natural body heat continue to keep them comfortable. The 3 other children were talking quietly among themselves now, comparing stories about their separated parents. "My human dad and Zentari mom can't even be in the same city," one little girl with feathers on her arm said sadly. "They fight every time they talk." "My mom went back to her planet," the boy with mixed features added. "She said raising hybrid kids was too hard. I only see her once a year now." The 3rd child, a girl with scales and human eyes, just sat quietly. When Lily asked about her parents, she whispered, "They both love me, but they hate each other. They use me to hurt each other. I wish they'd just forget about me so they could be happy." David and Sarah exchanged looks over the children's heads. Each story sounded painfully familiar. They were not the only parents who had failed their hybrid children. That should have made David feel better somehow. It did not. It just made him feel worse. Lily eventually fell asleep, curled against Sarah's side. The other children dozed off too, worn out from fear and cold. David and Sarah sat in the quiet maintenance station, listening to the storm outside and the soft breathing of sleeping kids. "I watch videos of her," Sarah said suddenly. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Beth sends me recordings every week. I know Lily changed her favorite color from purple to green in August. I know she lost her first tooth in October. I know she won her school's science fair with a project about hybrid genetics. I know everything about her life except how she actually feels when she's living it." David swallowed hard. "Beth told you she sends videos?" "Yes, she's been doing it for 3 years. Sarah looked at him. "Didn't you know? I thought you were too busy on your homeworld to care about us anymore." David's voice cracked. "Rachel told me you were working as an ambassador and didn't have time for family visits." Sarah's expression shifted to confusion and then anger. "Rachel? Your ex-wife Rachel? I haven't been on the homeworld in 2 years. I live in the colony. I've been here the whole time." David felt dizzy. "What?" "I attend every single one of Lily's school events. I sit in the back where she can't see me. I go to her soccer games. I was at her science fair. I even helped with the neighborhood cleanup day last month, working on the opposite side of the park from you." Sarah's voice shook. "I stayed away from actual visits because Rachel told me you had filed papers saying you didn't want me near Lily unsupervised. She said you thought I was dangerous. That's a lie." David stood up, his hands clenched into fists. "I never filed anything like that. I never said anything like that. Rachel has been lying to both of us." They stared at each other, the truth settling over them like cold water. For 5 years, they had been kept apart by someone who thought she was helping. Rachel had never accepted David's relationship with Sarah. She had made it clear that she thought interspecies families were wrong. David had thought she just needed time to adjust. He never imagined she would actively sabotage them. "She's been manipulating us," Sarah said slowly, "keeping us apart, making us think the other one didn't care." David wanted to put his fist through a wall. Instead, he sat back down hard on the crate. "All those times I thought you were ignoring Lily. All those times I told myself you'd moved on and forgotten about us. You were here. You were watching over her the whole time. And I thought you hated me so much you couldn't stand the idea of me being near our daughter." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Dragons rarely cried. Seeing it broke something in David's chest. "I thought you blamed me for all the hardship Lily faced. I thought you wished you'd never met me." "Never." The word came out fierce. "Not once. Not ever." They sat in silence for a long moment. The heater hummed. The children slept peacefully. Outside, the storm began to ease. David thought about 5 years of missed moments. 5 years of hurt that did not need to happen. 5 years of their daughter growing up thinking her parents could not stand each other. "I should have fought harder," David said quietly. "When you left, I should have chased after you. I should have refused to let you go. I was just so tired of fighting everyone else that when you walked away, I didn't have any fight left in me. I shouldn't have left." Sarah's voice was thick with emotion. "I was scared. Scared of failing as a mother. Scared that Lily would grow up hating both her species because of me. Scared that you would eventually realize you'd made a mistake. So I ran before you could leave me first. I wouldn't have left you," David said. "I could never have left you." Sarah looked at him fully then. Her golden eyes held so much pain and hope and fear all mixed together. Past tense. David's throat felt tight. "I don't know. I'm so angry right now I can barely think straight. Angry at Rachel. Angry at myself. Angry at you for believing I could stop loving you. Angry at both of us for letting fear win." "That's fair," Sarah said softly. Before either could say more, David's communicator buzzed. Emergency services had sent vehicles. The other children's families were on their way. Reality was coming back. Soon they would have to face everything outside this small, warm room. Soon they would have to figure out what to do next. Lily stirred in her sleep and mumbled something that sounded like, "Together." Her small hand reached out in her dreams. As if searching for someone, Sarah gently took her daughter's hand and held it. David watched them, mother and daughter, both belonging to him and both so far out of reach. He did not know how to fix what was broken between him and Sarah. But looking at them now, looking at the way Lily's face relaxed when her mother touched her, David knew he had to try. They both had to try. Lily deserved parents who fought for each other instead of running away. The question was whether 5 years of hurt could be healed, or if some things stayed broken forever. Emergency services arrived 30 minutes later. The 3 other children were reunited with their families amid tears and tight hugs. David watched the parents carefully. Some looked at their ex-partners with the same guarded pain he felt when looking at Sarah. Others would not even make eye contact. All of them looked tired. "Thank you for keeping them safe," one mother said to David and Sarah. She was human. Her ex-partner, Zantari. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't found them." "Just glad they're okay," David replied. After the families left, David carried a sleeping Lily to his ground car. Sarah followed silently. The storm had passed, but snow covered everything in white. The colony looked clean and peaceful in the early morning darkness. Christmas lights still blinked from windows. "I should take her home," David said awkwardly. "Get her warm and fed," Sarah nodded. She started to turn away. Then she stopped. "Can I come with you? Just to make sure she's really okay." "I'll leave after." David thought about refusing. His apartment was his space, untouched by Sarah for 5 years. Having her there would feel strange, but the hope in her eyes made the decision for him. "Okay. Yeah, come on." They drove through empty streets in silence. Lily stirred a few times but did not wake. She was exhausted. David parked outside his building and carried his daughter up 3 flights of stairs. Sarah walked behind them, her wings folded tight to fit in the narrow stairwell. The apartment was small but clean. David had left the Christmas tree lights on, and they filled the room with soft color. Presents sat wrapped underneath. Sarah stopped in the doorway, staring at the tree. It was decorated in a mix of human and Draken styles, just like the trees they used to make together. David laid Lily on the couch and covered her with a blanket. She mumbled something in her sleep but did not wake. He stood looking at his daughter for a long moment, then turned to find Sarah studying a picture on the wall. It showed the 3 of them when Lily was 2 years old. They looked happy. They had been happy. "I never took it down," David said quietly. "Lily asked me not to." Before Sarah could respond, David's communicator buzzed again. He glanced at the screen and his jaw clenched. Rachel. She was calling over and over. He rejected the call, but she immediately sent a text message. "We need to talk about Lily now." "What is it?" Sarah asked. "Rachel. She knows Lily was missing. Beth must have told her." David rubbed his face. "This is going to be bad." He was right. 10 minutes later, someone pounded on the apartment door. David opened it to find Rachel standing there with 2 people in official uniforms. Interspecies services officers. David's stomach sank. "Rachel, what are you doing?" "Protecting my family." Rachel pushed past him into the apartment. She stopped when she saw Sarah, her face twisted with disgust. "Of course you're here. I should have known." "This is my home," David said, forcing himself to stay calm. "You have no right to barge in." "I have every right when my niece is in danger." Rachel turned to the officers. "See? The child is being exposed to an unstable alien. This is exactly what I warned you about." One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes, looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we just need to confirm the child is safe. There was a report that she ran away. She ran away because of this mess." Rachel gestured at Sarah. "Hybrid children shouldn't be raised in these situations. It's confusing and harmful. David has been suffering for years trying to make this work. I'm doing this for his own good." "Nobody asked you to," David said through clenched teeth. Sarah stepped forward. Her eyes blazed with anger, but her voice stayed controlled. "The child ran away because she overheard adults saying cruel things about hybrid families. She felt unwanted and scared. We found her protecting 3 other hybrid children who felt the same way." "Exactly my point," Rachel said triumphantly. "This proves hybrid custody arrangements are harmful. These children would be better off raised by their human parents only, without the confusion of alien influence." David felt rage building in his chest. Before he could say something he would regret. Lily sat up on the couch. She had been awake, listening. Tears streamed down her face. "Stop it," Lily said. Her voice was small but clear. "Stop talking about me like I'm broken." Everyone turned to look at her. The officers shifted uncomfortably. Rachel opened her mouth, but Lily kept talking. "My name is Lily Chen Sarah. My dad is human. My mom is Draken. I'm both. I'm not confused. I'm not broken. I'm just me." She looked at Rachel with an expression far too old for an 8-year-old. "You're the one who made me run away. You told me hybrid kids don't belong anywhere. You told me my parents were wrong for loving each other. You made me think I shouldn't exist. Rachel's face went pale. I was just trying to help. No, you weren't. David's voice came out cold and hard. You were trying to erase the fact that I loved someone you didn't approve of. You've been lying to both of us for 5 years, keeping us apart, making our daughter feel like our family was shameful. You don't get to call that help. The female officer cleared her throat. Ma'am, if you've been providing false information to keep the parents separated, that could constitute harassment under interspecies family law. Rachel looked shocked. I was protecting David. I never asked for your protection. David's voice rose. You had no right to interfere with my family. No right to make decisions about my daughter. No right to tell Sarah I didn't want her near Lily. You lied to both of us and you hurt our child in the process. Lily stood up, walked past all the adults and positioned herself between David and Sarah. She took both their hands and looked up at the officers. At school, they taught us about human history. They said humans used to think people couldn't love each other if they looked different. Everyone agrees that was stupid now. How is this different? Her voice shook, but she did not stop talking. My parents made mistakes, but the biggest mistake was listening to people who said they couldn't make it work. They should have tried harder. And I'm going to make them try now. The officers looked at each other. The woman spoke gently. Sweetheart, we need to make sure you're safe and cared for. I am safe, Lily said firmly. I'm safe with both my parents together. The word hung in the air. Together. David looked at Sarah. Sarah looked back. Neither of them had an answer to give. They had spent 5 years apart. 5 years building separate lives. Could they really go back? Should they? But Lily deserved an answer. She deserved parents who would at least try. We'll try, David said quietly. He squeezed his daughter's hand. We'll figure this out together. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. She squeezed Lily's other hand. Together, Rachel made a disgusted sound. You're making a mistake. Then it's our mistake to make, David said. Leave, Rachel. And don't come back. You're not welcome in my daughter's life anymore. Rachel stared at him in shock. Then she turned and left without another word. The officers took statements, confirmed Lily was unharmed, and left with warnings about wasting emergency services. When the door finally closed, the three of them stood in the quiet apartment alone. Lily looked between her parents. Do you mean it? You'll really try. David and Sarah looked at each other. The hurt was still there. The anger and fear and years of pain. But underneath all that, something else remained. Something that had never completely died. We mean it, Sarah said softly. We'll really try. Lily threw her arms around both of them and started crying. Relief, exhaustion, and hope all mixed together. David held his daughter and felt Sarah's hand brush against his as she held Lily too. Their fingers touched and neither pulled away. It was not forgiveness. It was not a solution, but it was a start. Lily fell asleep again within minutes, emotionally exhausted. David carried her to his bedroom and tucked her in properly. When he came back to the living room, Sarah was still standing there looking lost. You should stay, David said. The words came out before he could overthink them. It's almost morning anyway, and Lily would want to wake up with both of us here. Sarah nodded slowly. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. David moved to the kitchen. I'll make food. You should rest. He made scrambled eggs and toast while Sarah sat carefully on the couch as if afraid she might break something. The apartment felt strange with her in it. Too small and too large at the same time. David kept catching himself glancing at her, then looking away quickly. They ate in awkward silence. The Christmas tree lights blinked steadily. Outside the window, dawn started to break over the colony. Other families would be waking up soon, excited to open presents and celebrate. David felt like he had lived through 3 days in one night. I have scales, Sarah said suddenly. She pulled a small box from her jacket pocket. Draken shed scales during emotional stress. I kept every one I shed over the last 5 years. She opened the box. It was full of small golden scales, each one carefully preserved. There were dozens of them. Every scale represents a moment I missed with Lily, Sarah continued, her voice thick. Every birthday. Every school event I watched from far away. Every night I went to bed alone, wondering if she remembered me. I've been shedding scales over you both for 5 years. David stared at the box. Then he got up and went to his bedroom closet. He came back with a data chip. I wrote journal entries, he said quietly. Every single day for 5 years. Things about Lily, things I wanted to tell you, things I wished I could say. I never sent any of them. But I couldn't stop writing them either. They sat looking at these small proofs that neither had moved on, that both had been stuck in the same painful place alone and hurting. We were idiots, Sarah said softly. Complete idiots, David agreed. They looked at each other, and something shifted. Not fixed, but shifted. A tiny crack in the wall between them. I don't know how to do this, David admitted. I don't know how to go from 5 years of silence to suddenly being a family again. I don't even know if we can. I don't either, Sarah said. But Lily deserves to see us try. Really try this time. Not just for her. For us too. Are you saying you want to get back together? Sarah hesitated. I'm saying I want the chance to find out if we still fit. We're different people now, older, maybe wiser, though last night suggests otherwise. But David, I never stopped loving you. I just stopped believing love was enough. David's chest felt tight. Love wasn't enough last time. What makes you think it will be now? Because last time we were fighting everyone else and forgot to fight for each other, Sarah said. This time we know what we're up against. We know the stakes. We know what losing feels like. Before David could respond, his communicator buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went pale. What is it? Sarah asked. Message from the Interspecies Council. David's hands shook slightly as he read. Rachel's complaint triggered an automatic review of all interspecies custody arrangements in the colony. They're calling a hearing for December 26th tomorrow. A hearing about what? David looked up at her, fear clear in his eyes. About whether hybrid children should be allowed to have joint custody with their alien parent. Our case is going to be the test case. Whatever they decide about us will affect hundreds of families across the colony. Sarah stood up abruptly. They can't do that. They can't use our family as some kind of political statement. They can and they are. David read more of the message. It says we need to appear before the council with any evidence that joint custody is in Lily's best interest. If we can't prove it, they'll recommend new guidelines limiting alien parent access. The weight of it settled over them both. This was not just about their relationship anymore. It was about every interspecies family in the colony. Every hybrid child who might be separated from part of their heritage because scared people made decisions based on fear, instead of love. We have to fight this, Sarah said fiercely. We have to win. How? David felt overwhelmed. They're going to bring up every problem we've had. The separation. Lily running away. Rachel will testify that hybrid families are unstable. They'll have plenty of evidence that we failed. Then we show them we're not failing anymore. Sarah moved closer. We show them what happened last night. We show them Lily and those other children. We show them that the problem isn't interspecies families. The problem is people like Rachel who try to tear families apart. David wanted to believe her, but he had learned the hard way that wanting something did not make it happen. And if we lose? If they decide to limit your custody? I can't watch you lose Lily again, Sarah. I can't watch our daughter lose her mother. Then we make sure we don't lose, Sarah said simply. She reached out and took his hand. Her scales felt warm against his skin. Together, remember? We promised Lily we'd try. This is what trying looks like. David looked at their joined hands. 5 years ago, holding hands with Sarah had been natural, easy. Now it felt foreign and familiar at the same time. Like coming home to a house that had been rebuilt while you were gone. Same foundation, different details. Okay, he said finally. We fight. But Sarah, after this is over, whether we win or lose, we need to figure out what we are to each other. We can't keep living in this strange middle ground. I know, Sarah said softly. One crisis at a time. They spent the rest of the morning preparing. David made calls to find a lawyer who specialized in interspecies family law. Sarah contacted families she knew who might be willing to testify. They worked side by side, sometimes awkward, sometimes falling into old patterns of cooperation so easily it hurt. Lily woke up around noon. She came into the living room rubbing her eyes and stopped when she saw both parents there, working together at the dining table. You're both still here, she said, her voice full of wonder. Both still here, David confirmed, and we're going to stay here. We're going to fight for our family, Lily. All three of us. Lily's face lit up with the first real smile David had seen from her in months. She ran to them and hugged them both. David and Sarah's arms wrapped around their daughter and accidentally around each other. It should have felt awkward. Instead, it felt right. Outside, Christmas Day continued in the colony. But inside David's small apartment, something new was beginning. Something fragile and uncertain but possible. They had 24 hours to prepare for a hearing that could destroy hundreds of families. 24 hours to prove that love across species could work. David looked at Sarah over their daughter's head. She looked back. Neither knew if they could win, but they would fight together, and that had to count for something. The council chamber was cold and formal. David sat at a table with Sarah on his left and their lawyer on his right. Lily sat between them wearing her best dress. The council members sat elevated on a platform looking down at them. 5 beings from different species, their faces unreadable. The room was packed. Other interspecies families filled the seats behind David and Sarah. Word had spread fast about the hearing. Everyone knew what was at stake. Rachel sat on the opposite side with her own lawyer. She looked confident. David's hands clenched under the table. Sarah's wing brushed against his shoulder, a small gesture of support. The head counselor, an elderly Torvin with silver fur, spoke first. This hearing will determine whether current interspecies custody arrangements serve the best interests of hybrid children. We will hear testimony from both sides and examine the case of David Chen and Sarah as representative of broader concerns. Rachel's lawyer stood immediately. The evidence is clear. Hybrid children raised in divided households show higher rates of emotional distress, identity confusion, and behavioral problems. The child in question ran away from home on Christmas Eve, putting herself and 3 other children at risk. This demonstrates the instability inherent in these arrangements. David felt Sarah tense beside him. Their lawyer responded calmly. The child ran away because of harassment from outside sources, not because of her parents. In fact, both parents worked together to find and protect multiple children that night, demonstrating exactly the kind of cooperation that benefits hybrid children. The hearing went on for over an hour. Rachel testified that David had been miserable for years, that Lily seemed confused about her identity, that interspecies relationships placed unfair burdens on everyone involved. Other witnesses talked about statistics and studies and theories. David listened to people discuss his family like they were a problem to be solved, instead of real people trying their best. He felt Lily's small hand slip into his. She was scared. They all were. Finally, the head counselor spoke. We would like to hear from the child herself if she's willing to speak. David looked at Lily. You don't have to, baby. We can handle this, but Lily stood up. Her legs shook, but her voice came out clear. I want to talk. She walked to the center of the room. All eyes focused on her. David's heart pounded. She was only 8 years old, facing a room full of powerful adults who would decide her fate. My name is Lily Chen Sarah, she began. My dad is human. My mom is Draken. Some people think that makes me confused, but I'm not confused about who I am. I'm both. I have dad's smile and mom's scales. I can eat human food and I can breathe fire like Draken. I'm not broken. I'm just different. She paused, looking around the room. I ran away because I heard people saying hybrid kids don't belong anywhere, that our parents made mistakes by loving each other, that we make everything complicated. I got scared that my parents would be happier without me. But I was wrong. Lily's voice got stronger. My parents aren't perfect. They fight sometimes. They got divorced and didn't talk for 5 years. That was stupid. But you know what? Lots of parents do that. Human parents. Alien parents. All kinds of parents. The difference is, when my parents make mistakes, people don't just say they need to work harder. People say they should never have been together at all. People say I shouldn't exist. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Lily kept talking. At school, we learned about Earth history. Humans used to make laws saying people with different skin colors couldn't marry each other. Everyone thinks that's horrible now. But this is the same thing. You're trying to separate families because you're scared of people being different. That's not protecting children. That's just being mean. David saw tears on several faces in the audience. Sarah's hand found his under the table and held tight. My parents love me, Lily said, her voice starting to shake. They both love me so much. They just forgot how to love each other. But last night, when I was scared and cold, they came together to find me. They worked as a team. They saved me and 3 other kids. They did it together because that's what family does. Family doesn't give up. She turned to look directly at the council. If you make rules that separate hybrid kids from their alien parents, You're telling us that love is only okay if everyone looks the same. You're telling us we're too hard, too different, too much trouble. But we're not. We're just kids who want our families to stay together. Lily's voice broke. Please don't take my mom away from me. Please don't make other kids lose their parents. We need them. Both of them. We need our families to be whole. She stopped talking and just stood there, an 8-year-old girl who had said what dozens of adults could not. The room was completely silent. The head counselor cleared his throat. His eyes looked suspiciously bright. Thank you, Lily. You may sit down. Lily walked back to her parents. Sarah pulled her into a tight hug, wings wrapping around her. David held them both, not caring what anyone thought. The council talked quietly among themselves for several minutes. Then the head counselor spoke. This council was formed to protect children, but young Lily has reminded us of something important. Protection does not mean separation. It means support. He looked at Rachel. The evidence shows that the problems in this family came not from the parents' different species, but from outside interference and lack of support. He turned to address the whole room. This council rejects the proposed restrictions on interspecies custody. Furthermore, we recommend mandatory support services for all interspecies families, not surveillance. We have been approaching this issue with fear when we should have approached it with compassion. Relief swept through the room. People started crying and hugging. David felt Sarah's tears against his neck as she buried her face in his shoulder. Lily squeezed between them, laughing and crying at the same time. We won, Sarah whispered. We actually won. Lily won, David corrected. Our daughter just changed policy for the entire colony. They stayed in that embrace for a long moment, 3 people who had been broken finding their way back to whole. When they finally pulled apart, David looked at Sarah properly. So what now? He asked. Now we go home, Sarah said. All of us together. Your home or my home? Our home, Lily interrupted. We'll figure it out. That's what families do, right? David and Sarah looked at each other. There was still so much to work through. 5 years of hurt did not disappear in one night. But they had time now. They had a chance. They had each other. Together, David said softly. Together, Sarah agreed. They walked out of the council chamber as a family, hands linked, facing whatever came next. Outside, snow had started falling again, coating the colony in fresh white. Christmas had passed, but something better had arrived. Hope, second chances, the possibility that love could be enough if you fought for it. David looked at his daughter walking between him and Sarah, chattering excitedly about what they should do first. He looked at Sarah, her golden eyes bright with tears and laughter. His family, imperfect and complicated and worth every struggle, they had a lot of work ahead of them, counseling and difficult conversations and rebuilding trust, but they would do it together. That made all the difference. As they reached David's car, Lily turned to both parents. Can Mom stay with us? Not just tonight. Really stay? David and Sarah looked at each other over their daughter's head. It was too fast. They barely knew each other anymore. It would be messy and hard and probably full of mistakes. Yes, they said at the same time. Lily's smile could have lit up the whole colony. They drove home through the snowy streets. 3 people who had been scattered finding their way back together. It was not a perfect ending. Real life never was. But it was a beginning. A real one this time, built on honesty instead of fear. David glanced in the rearview mirror. Sarah sat in the back seat with Lily, their daughter talking a mile a minute while Sarah listened with complete attention. When Sarah looked up and met his eyes in the mirror, she smiled. A real smile, full of hope and possibility. David smiled back. They had a long road ahead, but they would walk it together. That was enough. That was everything.